Whoa!
Hey guys, this was the first video that I made in this video series. I thought I would be clever and do it in the church, since the church is empty right now for COVID-19 like everything else. Turns out the sound quality wasn't that good, so I'll do them from now on outside in my yard like this one, where the sound is a bit better. You might hear a dog barking or a cat meowing, but that should be it. I hope you enjoy. This one says, "Where did the devil come from? Did God create him?" This one says, "Are evil spirits actually real?" And this one says, "Exorcisms, why?" All right, so we're getting right into the dark stuff. First of all, yes, the devil really does exist. Evil spirits really do exist. They were created by God. Part of the reason that people don't believe in these things nowadays is we have this childish image, and we imagine that what our childish image is of the devil, that this is what people actually mean when they talk about the devil. So if I was to ask you, okay, draw a cartoon of the devil, you would draw someone with like horns and like a little tail and a pitchfork, and we have all these images in our minds. I remember when I was a kid, I really believed some of these childish images. I remember I went to my mom and I said, "Mom, why did the devil become the devil?" And she said, "Because he said he hates God." And I was like, "Oh." So I went to my bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I said, "I hate God." And I waited to see if little horns were going to sprout out of my head. Of course, they never did. Another time, I remember I was in the backyard at my friend's house, and we decided to dig a hole to hell, because we thought hell was literally underground, right? And so we're digging a hole to hell, and out of this hole comes this spider. And I remember my friend and I looked at each other and we said, "Oh, that's a devil spider." But we kept digging, and when we got a little bit deeper, we hit a root or something like that, and we said, "It's the devil's horn." And we were terrified. And we came running around out of the backyard to the front yard of his house, and we thought, I imagined the devil like crawling out of this hole in the ground, right? The reality is, the images we have of the devil as being red with horns and living underground in this fiery place, I feel like I can say with great confidence that that is not what the devil is, right? You're not going to be drilling for oil someday and come through Satan's roof, right? And Satan looks up and goes, "Hey, you work for me." All right? So the devil is not living underground. Hell is not some underground fiery place. We'll talk about hell some other day. The devil is not some goat-legged red dude with horns. Where do we get those ideas from? It actually goes back to our pagan roots in Europe, right? The Greeks used to worship all these different gods, and some of those symbols have been incorporated into the devil. The reason is that as Christianity spread and all these formerly pagan people became Christian, people would say, "Well, no, that symbol over there, see, that symbol is for a false god, so you can't," right? And so people would put that and attach it to the devil. So for example, where does that trident come from? Often we call it a pitchfork, which is actually a pretty brutal image, right? Kind of pitching a bunch of dead people into the fire. But, where does the devil get a trident from, right? Of course, if you've seen The Little Mermaid, it's King Triton, it's Poseidon, it's Neptune, right? It's the god of the sea. Well, as Christians, we don't believe that that's a real god. There was some discussion in the early church, is Poseidon a real being, or was he just a myth, right? Because if he was a real being, but he's not God, that would make him a demon. So if he's a demon, now you can see, let's give him that symbol, all right? Let's give him the Aquaman trident. That is now a symbol of the devil. Where did the devil get his goat legs and his little horns from? The horns and the goat legs come from the Greek satyrs, right? I had to pause recording this so I could go look up how to pronounce that, because I always get it wrong. It's S-A-T-Y-R. And I'm like, satyr, satyr. It's satyr. Now we know, satyr. Okay. The Greek satyrs were those goat-legged people with the little horns. You remember like Grover in Percy Jackson, okay? So Grover is an example of a satyr. Well, the boss of the satyrs was this character called Pan. And Pan was a god who guarded kind of the entrance to the underworld. So people would see him, as kind of this goat guy starting. And he wasn't in charge of hell, right? That's another god, Hades, and a lot of that imagery has been combined in as well, okay? But he was the guard of the underworld. And it was said that if your sheep started freaking out for something, it was said that Pan had startled them. And this is why when you act like a startled sheep, people say, well, you're panicking. This is where this root comes from. So now what we've got is Pan holding a trident to combine those two gods. And the last one that we have there is the star. You know the star, the upside down star, the pentagram? And people are like, oh, it's a satanic symbol. That's a symbol of the goddess Venus. Because it was thought that if you were to trace the star Venus through the night sky, it would make one of those upside down stars, one of those pentagrams. All right? And so they combined these symbols and these became satanic symbols. Well, what happens now is we kind of grow up and we have this childish understanding of who the devil is, and we see these cartoons, we see Bugs Bunny, and we see, Daffy Duck, he has to go down to hell and it's underground and there's this great big goat man with the trident. And what happens is as we mature, people say, do you really believe in that? Do you seriously believe that there's some super buff red goat man dude under the ground with the trident? And you go, no, I guess I don't. So I guess I don't believe in the devil. What has happened is this. Our understanding of the faith doesn't continue to evolve as we grow older, doesn't continue to mature as we grow older, and we have these childish notions. And so people will reject belief in God or in angels or in the devil or in heaven or in hell because they have these childish images of what those things are, and they don't realize that that's because their catechesis stopped when they were 7 years old. So who is the devil actually? We understand that God is the creator of the entire universe. God is pure spirit, okay? He's not a physical being, so he doesn't have a body per se. God creates the physical universe, but he also creates a spiritual realm. Once you believe in God, it's easy to believe in a spiritual, non-physical realm. Okay? And once you believe that God has created physical beings with intelligence, it's reasonable to suppose that God would also create spiritual beings with intelligence and free will. So we've got these spiritual beings with intelligence and free will. We commonly call them angels, although angel means messenger of God. Okay, we commonly call these guys angels. Well, what happens if some of these spirits, these pure spirits, decide not to serve God? And so these stories come up, which again might just be childish stories. We don't really know where the devil came from. We know he was created by God. Right? Everything that exists because God holds it in existence. On another one of these videos, we'll talk about how God's name is existence. So everything that exists because existence holds it in existence. If existence doesn't hold in existence, it can't exist. Nothing can exist apart from existence. Cool. So nothing can exist apart from God, not even the devil. Which means if God wanted to, he could and the devil would cease to exist. For some reason, God doesn't do that. Okay? God creates the devil, and God says, you are a pure spirit, you will exist forever, but I'm also going to give you free will. So God gives spirits, he gave humans free will as well, but he gives spirits free will. He says, you can serve me or choose not to serve me. Reason being, if you force everything to serve you, then you're saying you're my slave, right? But if you ask them to serve you, then you're saying, listen, I love you, will you love me back? It's an option. It's a relationship of love, right? And so these angels have this choice. Are they going to love God, which is to serve God, okay? So again, it's not a servant analogy. It's more a father-son analogy. Obviously, Scripture seems to prefer the parent and child analogy. So are you going to serve me? Are you going to love me? Or are you going to rebel against me who created you? The story goes, and again, it's a story, it's not in the Bible, but it's a story people like to tell. And the story goes that God was explaining his plan for the universe. And God's like, I'm going to create all these awesome things, planets and galaxies and meteors. It's going to be amazing. And then on one of these tiny little planets, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to put life. And there's going to be these awesome things. There's going to be elephants and hippopotamuses and rhinoceroses and all these yusses. We're going to make all these awesome things, and then we're gonna make monkeys, and those guys are gonna be hilarious. Then we're gonna make apes. They're gonna be like monkeys, but they're not gonna have tails, right? If it doesn't have a tail, it's not a monkey. So they're gonna be like monkeys, but no tails. Then we're gonna make some of them mostly bald, and we're gonna make those ones in our image. They'll be able to think like us. They'll have free will like us, which means they'll be capable of love like us. And so you can imagine Satan, whose name back then, by the way, was Lucifer, right? Bearer of light. Lucifer goes, excuse me, sir, just a point of clarification. If they can have free will, does that mean that they can reject you? And God's like, yes, they can. So what happens if all these little bald monkey things reject you? And God's like, well, I'm going to become one of them. Whoa. You're going to become a bald monkey? Yeah, I'll become one of them so that I can indicate to them how much I love them. Whoa. This is a little bit ridiculous. You can't, you're God. You can't become a bald monkey on a tiny little planet. You created the universe. That doesn't follow. No, you can't do this. And God's like, listen, this is my plan. Because everything I have created out of love. And these things, these little bald monkeys, I am particularly going to love because they will be created in our image and likeness. And so the devil, Lucifer, he's like, no, this plan is stupid. No, I will not. I refuse. He's like, no, listen, the deal is you angels are going to serve these bald monkeys and you'll guide them and do that. Oh, I am not serving no tiny little bald monkey. You can forget about it, right? And so what happens is the devil, and scripture indicates about a third of the angels, they choose not to follow God. So now what you have is a spiritual realm where 2/3 of the spirits are still with God, but a third of the spirits have chosen to fight against God. And those would be Lucifer, because he was kind of the captain. There's still a hierarchy amongst the angels, right? So Lucifer was the general or the captain, and all these guys who are underneath him. And so they are fallen angels, okay? And that's where the demons have come from. They're pure spirits. And what they want to do is they hate God. And in a way, they hate their choice to reject God. When you reject God, you reject everything that is good, right? So it's not that God punishes them and says, no, if you're not going to serve me, go to hell, right? It's actually that this is heaven. Heaven is a perfect relationship of love with me. And these angels say, no, that's not what I want. And so they choose to reject God. They choose to reject everything that is good. This is how they end up in hell, all right? Well, now they want to get back at God. But how do you hurt God? You actually can't hurt God. God, by his very nature, cannot be hurt. Okay, so you can't get to him. So how are you going to hurt God? Let's make the bald monkeys turn against him. Let's get the bald monkeys to reject him. All right? And so this is where the devil comes in and starts tempting us. Now, it doesn't mean every time you're tempted that it's the devil, right? The church has always said that there is the world, the flesh, and the devil. Okay? So there's temptations that come to you from the world, right? You're on social media someday, and this little pop-up comes up, and it's like, check out hot singles in Rocky Mountain House. Oh, wow, I'll probably know them, right? And so that is a temptation that came to you from the world. But you also have temptations from your own flesh. You might have a desire to look at inappropriate videos or to overeat or to get drunk. You kind of have this interior drive. And there's the devil who basically suggests ideas to us in order to tempt us. So this is the main kind of work that the devil wants to do. Now, every once in a while, there is something called possession. Now, I don't know that I've ever seen it. I've certainly never seen it, or I certainly don't think that I've ever seen it in Canada. I've seen people who've had mental illnesses, but there is such a thing as possession. In the Bible, it talks about how these possessed people, there's this one encounter that Jesus has in this man, he lives among the tombs. And it says they tried to chain him down, but he kept breaking the chains, and so the chains wouldn't hold him, and so he keeps breaking the chains. So Jesus goes to him, and he casts the demons out of him. And priests will always make this joke that he takes the demons, casts them out of this man, casts them into a herd of pigs. The pigs all go diving off the cliff, and that was the invention of deviled ham. Okay, so Jesus cast the demons out of this guy, and there were demons cast out of other people in the Bible. And believe it or not, every diocese in the Catholic Church, to my understanding, has an exorcist, but they don't advertise who it is. An exorcist is a priest who is trained in exorcism. If you've ever seen any movie about exorcisms, if you've seen The Exorcist or The Exorcism of Emily Rose or The Rite, these kinds of movies, this whole genre, they always feature Catholic priests. And why is this? It's because Catholic priests have authority over the demonic realm. They've been given that authority by Christ. So just like Christ was able to cast out demons, he gave the authority to his apostles. He said, the things you've seen me do, you will do even greater things. And so Catholic priests have this authority and they exercise it. And so any priest could perform an exorcism, but sometimes, man, it's like a stronghold. There's one case where actually the apostles were unable to cast the demons out, and Jesus had to step in and boom, and then he said, look, this kind can only be cast out in prayer and fasting. All right. So they have authority, but there are things that they need to do. There were rituals. Christ always uses sacramentals, right? Physical things. It was true in Bible times, and it's true today. In Bible times, if you wanted to anoint a king, you needed physical oil. When Jesus wanted to heal a blind man, he put mud on the man's eyes. All right? When the leper wanted to be cleansed, he had to go dip himself in the Jordan River. So it was true in Bible times, and it's true today. This is why we have rituals and ceremonies and sacramentals, meaning physical signs of spiritual realities. And so what you do is, if you think someone, let's imagine that I thought some kid in my youth group was possessed. Okay, first thing I would do is I'd go talk to my priest. The first thing the priest would do is assume that this kid has a mental illness. Okay? Because most of the time, there's a lot of mental illnesses out there. They're not all due to possession. Okay? So you assume that this kid has a mental illness. But if, in talking to the kid, the priest starts saying, hey, this thing is big, right? He should bring in a professional counselor. But if the counselor's like, I don't know what's going on here, they might have to call in the exorcist. And I don't even know who the exorcist is in my diocese. But this exorcist priest will come and perform an exorcism on the kid. And what will happen is the priest will cast that evil spirit out and will free that kid. There's a lot of myths about this and those movies that I mentioned, right? They kind of Hollywoodize the whole thing. But there is such a thing as a spiritual reality, and they do take over people's bodies, and they do make those people do crazy things. And then there are exorcisms. Again, I've never seen one for sure. There's one situation that I'm suspicious of that I think maybe I saw a girl get exorcised, and here's the story. It was the first time that I went to Africa. I was in Kenya. I was in this region called Mbulbo, and we were doing a parish mission. And so what was happening is people were coming up to us, and we would pray for them. And as we prayed for them, they'd fall on the ground. This is something called getting slain in the spirit or resting in the spirit. Basically, you decide, I want to let God work in me. I'm not going to resist, right? And people catch you. They lay you down, and it's a very peaceful experience. So if you've never seen this, don't freak out when you do see it. So this is kind of happening. That's par for the course, especially in Africa. They're much more expressive there in church than we are here in Canada, so it wasn't that surprising to see that kind of thing happening. So I'm, praying over this one lady here, and then a couple down from me, this guy's praying over a girl, and all of a sudden, she starts like convulsing and barking, kind of like a dog, but she's like, and she falls to the ground, and she starts rolling from one end of the church to the other, faster than I could roll if I was seeking to demonstrate this. I don't think I could do it. There's people lying on the ground. She's rolling right over them and continuing to the other end, and then back to this end. And I'm going, what is going on with this girl, right? This is some serious mental illness or whatever. And so a bunch of people are trying to grab her, and they want to get her to the back of the church because she's distracting to the whole prayer service. And so they ask me to help. Now, I happen to be trained in how to do restraints. I used to work in a group home for kids with behavior problems, right? So I can grab your wrists and kind of secure you like this and hold you up against my body, right? And so that's the way I decide to secure her. She must have been, by the way, 20 years old, probably like 110, 115 pounds, just a skinny little thing, right? So I'm holding this girl kind of like this, and she's going, and there's two other men, one holding each of her legs, and we carry her to the back. And it was astonishing to me how hard it was for me to hold this light, skinny girl. But we get to the back, and we're praying for her, and she's just going, and if this was demonic, this is what you would call a manifestation, okay? It's where you actually see the spiritual realm. And all of a sudden, someone comes over with the rosary, and they take the cross, the crucifix of the rosary, and they just press it against her thigh. And when that happened, she just kind of slumped into me and relaxed. And I just kind of stood there going, I have no idea, right? So was it psychological? Was it a Kenya, we're all into being more expressive thing? Or was it something spiritual? I have to tell you, it seemed spiritual to me. But I'm not an expert. We didn't call in a professional exorcist. I have no idea what happened to that girl going forward or what her backstory was. That was my one encounter. So again, the spiritual stuff, it is real, but you don't need to be too scared of it. However, you should be safe. There's a story about this guy who goes to the Calgary Zoo. And so it's two guys and they're drunk and it's the middle of the night and they go to the Calgary Zoo and they go to the tiger cage, right? And of course, nobody's around. Nobody sees this stuff happening. And if you go to the Calgary Zoo, there's like a short fence and then there's the big bars that the tigers are behind the short fence. Well, what they do is they crawl over the short fence and there's a tiger right up against the bars and the man puts his hand in between the bars and starts petting the tiger. What do you think happened? The tiger turns around, grabs him by the arm, pins him against the bars, and the other guy had to call 911 and they had to come in and save this guy. What an idiot, right? You're an idiot. Does that mean the Calgary Zoo is not safe? No, for the most part, it's safe, right? The Calgary Zoo is a safe place. The tiger display is safe. You don't need to be scared of the tigers when you go to the Calgary Zoo. But you don't be an idiot and crawl over the fence and get into its enclosure. It's the same with the spiritual realm. If there are dark spirits, it would stand to reason that there are some things that would be forbidden that you do not do because that's where those spirits are. Those activities are called occult things, okay? So some examples would be like Ouija boards, seances. Seances are where people stand around a table and they call on a spirit and, "Grandma, come speak to," and that table supposedly hovers, right? Some sorts of fortune telling. Now, of course, a lot of these things are just shams, right? It should cause you to be suspicious that Ouija boards are made by Parker Brothers and they're available at Walmart in the same section of Walmart as the SpongeBob SquarePants board game, right? It should make you suspicious that that is the case. However, supposing that this was something that spirits really wanted to use, these things, these occult things, are forbidden by the Catholic Church. This word forbidden is important, right? Because if you told me you're going to go to a party, like, "Yo, Peter, we're going to this party on the weekend." "Oh, yeah, cool. What are you going to do?" "Oh, we're going to get drunk. We're going to get high." But, whoa, okay. You know, drunkenness is considered a sin. You're not supposed to, even though marijuana is legal in Canada, you're a teenager, whatever, right? Like, I would tell you those things are sins. They're wrong. They're stupid. But I wouldn't use the word forbidden. So the word forbidden is used for these occult things. And then what happens, though, is teenagers see Ouija boards and they just treat them like they're board games, okay? There's all kinds of reasons to think, even if you used it and you were scared of it, there's all kinds of reasons to think it was psychological. Maybe you unconsciously guided it to the correct letters to spell out the answer to your question, whatever. There's all kinds of reasons to think that that's all that's going on. However, it is forbidden. So I would strongly advise you to stay away from it, just like I strongly advise you not to stick your arm through the bars of the tiger cage. Okay, so in conclusion, the spiritual realm is real. And just like in the world, there are people who choose to love and to serve God, and there are people who choose to rebel against God. In the spiritual realm, there are beings who choose to love and serve God, and there are beings who choose to reject God. What we want to do is, if we ever encounter anything, just continue to love and serve God. Put yourself under God and trust in Him and in His goodness and in His protection. Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to add to this video. We talked about the devil, we talked about possession and all these kinds of things. Here's the thing you got to realize is the devil doesn't want you to know that he exists, right? C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, those things, he said, the greatest thing the devil ever did was convince the world that he doesn't exist. The reason is you will actually be more susceptible to his temptations if you don't believe in him, because that means you also don't believe in God. So if he shows his hand, then you go, oh, there is a spiritual reality. So it's kind of funny when there are exorcisms, when there's possessions, and it's something that science can't talk about, science can't address. How is it possible that kid spoke with so many voices or whatever it is? It's actually proving that the spiritual realm is real. It's actually proving that God has authority over it when that person is exorcised. So again, you don't have to worry too much about these things because the devil doesn't want you to know he exists. So you're probably not going to see it very much. Also, there's not only bad spirits in the world, there's also good spirits, right? If the devil is real, then angels are real. And angels are the ones who are equal to the devil. God is not equal to the devil. God is massive compared to the devil, holds him in existence. But there is this counter force of angels, so you don't need to be afraid of demons. Just call on the angels. In particular, there's one called Saint Michael the Archangel. He's like the general who stayed with God. So if Lucifer left God, Saint Michael stayed with God. He's super powerful. So I'm going to end this video with the prayer of Saint Michael as produced by Mark Mellett.
Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits who prowl throughout the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.